The explosion started at sunset. Hana was in the medical tent when the first blast shook the ground beneath her feet. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, translating medical terms between humans and the Valthoran warriors who towered over her like living mountains. Her eyes burned. Her hands trembled as she held the translation device. 3 weeks on Valthor Prime had drained everything from her except the stubborn determination to keep going. The Valthorans were not like other species in the Galactic Coalition. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick gray scales that could deflect small arms fire. Their eyes glowed amber in the dark. Their claws could slice through steel. They were born hunters, born warriors, and they trusted no one outside their clans. Getting them to accept human medical help had taken weeks of patient work, and Hana had done most of it. Now the swarm was here, and all that work might die in fire. Everyone to defensive positions. The order came through the comm system in sharp, urgent tones. Hana recognized Commander Park Junho's voice. The elite soldier had arrived 3 days ago with his team, reinforcing the settlement's defenses. He had warned them that the swarm was probing the sector, looking for weak points. Apparently they had found one. Hana grabbed her emergency pack and ran outside. The sky was burning. Red streaks of plasma fire cut through the purple twilight. The swarm ships looked like massive insects, their bioorganic hulls pulsing with sickly green light. Smaller attack craft swarmed around them like angry wasps. The Valthoran warriors were already moving to the defensive line. Their movements were fluid despite their size, practiced and efficient. Hana watched them go, then started toward the civilian shelter. That was where she was supposed to go. That was the protocol, human Hana. The voice stopped her in her tracks. She turned to see Koth, the clan leader, striding toward her. Behind him, 3 small figures struggled to keep up. His cubs. Hana had met them before during the cultural exchange sessions. Raka, the eldest at maybe 7 human years. Tesh, the middle child, quiet and observant. Mira, the youngest, barely 5, who had once fallen asleep in Hana's lap during a long ceremony. Koth reached her in 3 massive strides. Blood already stained his armor. He had been on the outer perimeter when the attack started. You must take them. Koth's voice was rough, urgent, his amber eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Take who? I don't understand, Koth gestured to his cubs. My children. You must protect them. I trust no one else. Hana's mind went blank. But the other Valthorans, your clan, they fight. All of them. The warriors, the elders strong enough to hold weapons. Even the mothers defend the nursery with the infants. Koth knelt, bringing his massive head level with hers. You care for my people. You sit with wounded warriors. You learn our songs for my cubs. You do not see them as monsters. You see them as people. Another explosion rocked the settlement. Closer this time. I cannot leave the line, Koth continued. If I do, my warriors lose heart. But I cannot fight knowing my cubs face danger. You understand? You must understand. Hana looked at the 3 small Valthorans. They were terrified. Their scales had paled to a light gray, their eyes wide. Mira was crying. A soft clicking sound that broke Hana's heart. She thought about her brother, about the colony ship, about holding his hand as the life left his eyes while the swarm tore through the hull. She had been 17. He had been 12. She had promised her mother she would keep him safe. She had failed. Where should I take them? Her voice came out steady despite the fear churning in her gut. Koth's expression shifted. Relief, gratitude, something deeper that Hana did not have words for. The old supply bunker. Sector 7, underground, strong walls. I will send coordinates to your device. He placed one massive hand on her shoulder. The gesture was gentle despite the claws. In my culture, we do not give our cubs to outsiders, ever. You understand the honor I show you? I understand. Hana did not. Not really, but she understood enough. This was trust. Complete, absolute trust. Koth turned to his cubs and spoke rapidly in their clicking language. Then he touched each of their heads one after another. A blessing, maybe. A goodbye that might be permanent. Swear to me, Koth said, looking back at Hana. Swear you will protect them. I swear, Hana said. With my life. Koth nodded once, then turned and ran toward the defensive line. His massive form disappeared into the chaos of battle. Hana stood there for a moment, 3 terrified alien children looking up at her, and wondered what she had just promised. Her comm device beeped. The coordinates appeared on her screen. Sector 7 was on the opposite side of the settlement from the main fighting. Good, she needed to move fast. "Come on," she said to the cubs, trying to keep her voice calm. "Stay close to me. We are going somewhere safe." Raka, the oldest, clicked something at his siblings. They formed a tight group around Hana. She started walking, then jogging. The cubs kept pace easily despite their size. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder. They passed through empty streets. Most civilians had already reached the shelters. A few stragglers ran past, heading for safety. No one stopped to question why a human diplomat was running with Valthoran cubs. Sector 7 was near the edge of the settlement. The bunker entrance was hidden behind a cluster of supply containers. Hana had to check her coordinates twice to find it. The door was heavy, reinforced steel, sealed with a keypad lock. Her diplomatic clearance code opened it with a hiss of depressurizing air. Inside, emergency lights cast everything in pale blue. The bunker was larger than she expected. Storage crates lined the walls. A small living area had been set up in one corner, probably for emergency personnel. There were monitors showing security feeds from around the settlement. And there was only one entrance, one way in, one way out. Hana sealed the door behind them and set the lock. The cubs huddled together in the center of the room, looking lost. Mira was still crying. Hana knelt beside them. "It is okay," she said softly, even though it was not okay. Even though nothing about this was okay. "You are safe here. I promise." She showed them the small living area. There were ration packs, water supplies, even some thermal blankets. She pulled out food and offered it to them. Raka took it carefully, then shared with his siblings. They ate in silence, their eyes never leaving her face. Outside, through the monitors, Hana could see the battle raging. Plasma fire lit up the night. The swarm forces were pushing hard against the defensive line. She could see Valthoran warriors fighting with desperate courage, their massive forms moving through the chaos. She looked at the cubs. They had finished eating and were watching the monitors with horrified fascination. "Do not watch that," Hana said gently. She found her personal device and pulled up pictures. "Look, these are from my home, Earth." She showed them images of human cities, of forests and oceans, of children playing in parks. The cubs gathered around, distracted. Tesh clicked a question. "Those are human cubs," Hana explained. "Children, we call them. They are small like you." She found a picture of herself with her brother taken years ago before the swarm attack. Two humans smiling at the camera, unaware of the nightmare coming. "This is my brother," she said quietly. "He died when I was young." "The swarm killed him." Raka made a soft clicking sound. Sympathy, maybe. The universal language of grief. Hours passed. Hana told them stories, showed them more pictures, sang them songs in Korean that her grandmother had taught her. Slowly, exhausted by fear and the late hour, the cubs began to drift off. Mira fell asleep first, curled against Hana's side. Then Tesh. Raka fought it the longest, clearly trying to stay alert, to be brave. But eventually he too succumbed. Hana sat there with 3 alien children sleeping against her and looked at the monitors. The battle had not stopped. If anything, it had intensified. She could see swarm scouts moving through the outer sectors, probing for weaknesses. On the floor beside her was her emergency pack. Inside was a standard-issue plasma pistol. She had qualified with it during basic training for diplomatic corps. But she had never fired one outside a shooting range. She barely remembered which end to point at the target. But she had made a promise. Carefully, so as not to wake the cubs, Hana eased herself away from them and walked to the bunker entrance. She drew the pistol from her pack. It felt heavy and awkward in her hands. She checked the charge. Full. Enough for maybe 20 shots if she was lucky. She looked back at the sleeping cubs. So small, so vulnerable. Then she looked at the door. The only entrance. The only thing between them and whatever came in the night. Hana took a position where she could see both the door and the monitors. She sat down, back against the wall, pistol in her lap. The metal was cold against her palms. She would not sleep tonight. She could not. She had made a promise, and humans kept their promises. Hour 1 passed like a lifetime. Hana sat with her back against the cold metal wall, watching the monitors flicker with images of destruction. The plasma pistol rested in her lap, growing warm from her nervous grip. Every few minutes she would check the charge display, as if the number might have changed. It never did. The cubs slept in a pile near the center of the room, their breathing slow and even. Mira made small clicking sounds in her sleep, probably dreaming. Hana envied them that peace. Her own eyes burned with exhaustion, but every time they started to close, she forced them open again. On the main monitor, she could see the defensive line. The Velthoran warriors fought like demons, their massive forms crushing swarm soldiers with brutal efficiency. But for every swarm creature that fell, two more seemed to take its place. The green bioluminescence of the swarm forces created an eerie glow across the battlefield. Hana's comm device buzzed. She grabbed it, hoping for an update. The message was automated, sent to all personnel. Defensive line holding. Casualties mounting. All non-combat personnel remain in shelters. She was non-combat personnel. She had no business holding a weapon. She barely knew how to use it. But she was all these cubs had. Hour 2 brought the first real scare. The bunker's external sensors picked up movement. Hana's heart hammered as she watched the perimeter feed. 3 shapes moving through the darkness low to the ground. Swarm scouts. They were searching methodically, checking every structure, every hiding place. Hana stood up slowly, raising the pistol with shaking hands. The scouts were still 200 meters away, but they were moving in this direction. She looked at the door controls, debating whether to kill all the lights. But the cubs might wake in complete darkness and panic. She compromised, dimming the lights to their lowest setting. The bunker fell into deep shadow. On the monitors, she watched the scouts creep closer. 100 meters, 75, 50. Her finger found the trigger. She had never shot anyone before. Never even shot at anything that was not a practice target. The thought of taking a life, even a swarm life, made her stomach twist. But the thought of those things reaching the cubs made her grip tighten. At 25 meters, the scouts stopped. They seemed to be scanning, their sensor organs pulsing. Hana held her breath. The bunker was designed to have minimal thermal signature. Maybe they would not detect anything. Maybe they would move on. One of the scouts turned toward the bunker. It took a step closer. Behind Hana, Mira shifted in her sleep, making a soft sound. Hana's blood turned to ice. The scout's head snapped toward the noise. It took another step. Then, from somewhere to the north, an explosion lit up the night. The scout's attention shifted instantly. All 3 of them turned and scuttled toward the new disturbance, disappearing into the darkness. Hana let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Her legs felt weak. She slid back down the wall, still gripping the pistol. That had been too close. Way too close. Hour 3 was when the exhaustion really started to hit. Hana's vision would blur without warning. She would blink and realize several seconds had passed. Her head would nod forward, then jerk back up as panic shot through her. She could not sleep. She would not sleep. She stood up and started pacing. Movement helped. She walked the perimeter of the bunker, checking the door seals, examining the monitors, counting the supply crates. Anything to keep moving, to keep her mind active. On one of the monitors, she saw something that made her stop. A Velthoran warrior had fallen. Others were dragging the body back behind the line. Even from the grainy security feed, she could see the size of the fallen warrior. The distinctive armor markings. It was not Koth. She was almost sure it was not Koth. But it could have been. She thought about the cubs waking up to find their father dead. She thought about explaining that to them. She thought about the trust Koth had placed in her and how she was barely managing to stay awake, let alone protect anyone. Focus, she whispered to herself. Just focus. She pulled out her emergency stimulant injector. Every diplomatic corps member carried one for extreme situations. The instructions were clear. Use only in life-threatening emergencies. Side effects may include tremors, anxiety, and cardiac stress. Do not exceed 1 dose in 24 hours. Hana looked at the injector, then at the cubs, then at the clock. Hour 3. 5 more hours until dawn at least. Maybe longer. She pressed the injector against her neck and triggered it. The hiss was loud in the quiet bunker. The effect was immediate and unpleasant. Her heart rate spiked. Her hands started shaking worse than before. Her mouth went dry, but her eyes felt clearer. The fog of exhaustion lifted, replaced by a jittery, anxious alertness. It would have to do. Hour 4 brought the crying. Mira woke up suddenly, clicking in distress. The sound was heartbreaking, a child's fear given voice. Hana rushed over, setting the pistol aside carefully. She gathered the small Velthoran into her arms. Mira was surprisingly light despite her size, her scales cool to the touch. "Shh, it is okay," Hana murmured, rocking gently. "You are safe. I promise you are safe." Mira's clicking gradually settled into softer sounds. Raka and Tesh woke up too, blinking in confusion. They looked around the bunker, remembering where they were, why they were here. "Where is father?" Raka asked in halting human standard. Hana had taught him some basic phrases during their cultural sessions. She wished he had not learned well enough to ask that question. "He is fighting," Hana said honestly. "He is very brave." "He is protecting all of us. Will he die?" Tesh asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Hana wanted to lie, to say no, to promise that everything would be fine. But she had learned during her weeks with the Valthorans that they valued honesty above comfort. "I do not know," she said softly, "but he is strong, and he has many warriors with him. They are all fighting very hard." She pulled out more ration packs and distributed them. The cubs ate mechanically without enthusiasm. They kept glancing at the monitors, at the chaos visible on the screens. Hana found some games on her personal device and showed them. Simple things, puzzles and matching games designed for human children. The cubs were curious despite their fear. They took turns trying to solve the puzzles, clicking at each other in their own language. Hana watched them and felt something crack in her chest. They were just children. They should be playing and learning and growing, not hiding in a bunker while war raged above them. She thought about her brother again. About how he had looked at her in those final moments, scared but trying to be brave. She had held his hand and promised him it would be okay. She had lied to him. She had failed him. She would not fail these cubs. Hour 5 was the hardest. The stimulant was wearing off and the crash was brutal. Hana felt like her bones were made of lead. Her eyelids drooped despite her best efforts. She slapped her own face hard enough to sting. The pain helped, but only for a moment. The cubs had fallen back asleep, exhausted by fear and stress. They looked peaceful, trusting. They believed she would keep them safe. Hana stood up and started doing exercises. Jumping jacks, squats, anything to keep her blood moving. Her muscles screamed in protest. She had been awake for over 40 hours now. Her body was shutting down, demanding rest. "No," she told herself firmly. "Not yet. Not now." She recited her grandmother's songs in Korean, then switched to multiplication tables. 7 times 8 is 56. 8 times 9 is 72. The numbers became a mantra, something to focus on besides the overwhelming need to sleep. On the monitors, she saw more swarm forces moving through the settlement. They were getting bolder, pushing deeper into human territory. The defensive line was holding, but barely. Hour 6 brought a moment of. The bunker door rattled. Hana grabbed the pistol and aimed at the entrance, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. The cubs woke instantly, their predator instincts recognizing danger. The door rattled again. Something was trying to get in. Hana's finger tightened on the trigger. She could see her hand shaking, making the barrel waver. She tried to steady her aim, but exhaustion and fear made it. The door handle moved. Something was working, the lock mechanism. The swarm were not supposed to be smart enough to hack doors, but intelligence reports were not always accurate. "Get behind the crates," Hana whispered to the cubs. They obeyed instantly, scrambling into cover. The lock clicked. The door started to open. Hana aimed at the gap, ready to fire. Her entire body trembled. This was it. This was where she would have to kill or be killed. The door swung open. A figure stood silhouetted in the entrance, human-shaped, wearing coalition armor. "Hold fire." The voice was female, urgent. "Corporal Kim Hijin, Medical Corps. I'm checking bunkers for survivors." Hana nearly collapsed with relief. She lowered the pistol, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Hijin stepped inside, her helmet lights illuminating the bunker. She saw Hana, then the cubs peeking out from behind the crates, then Hana again. "Are you okay?" Hijin asked, concerned. "Fine," Hana managed. "We are fine. Just scared." Hijin approached slowly, checking her scanner. "You are Lee Hana, Diplomatic Corps?" "Yes. And those are clan leader Koth's cubs?" "Yes," Hijin whistled softly. "You know what an honor that is? Valthorans never trust outsiders with their young." "I know," Hana said. She felt lightheaded. "Is the fighting over?" "No, we pushed the swarm bay regrouping. I am doing..." The first light of dawn crept across the monitors at exactly 0600 hours. Hana had counted every minute. Her internal clock had become unreliable, warped by exhaustion and fear. But the bunker's chronometer kept perfect time. 43 hours since she had last slept. 7 hours since Koth had placed his cubs in her care. 7 hours that felt like 7 years. The stimulant had long since worn off, leaving her system flooded with toxins and trembling with withdrawal. Her vision kept sliding in and out of focus. Twice in the last hour, she had caught herself staring at nothing, her mind simply blank, her body trying desperately to shut down. She had resorted to biting the inside of her cheek, using pain to stay conscious. Her mouth tasted like blood. On the monitors, the battle had reached a terrible crescendo. The swarm was throwing everything at the defensive line in one final, desperate push. Hana knew enough about military tactics to understand why. Coalition reinforcements were coming. Long-range sensors had picked up the fleet hours ago. The swarm had a narrow window to break through and cause maximum damage before they had to retreat. They were not going quietly. "Hana," Raka's voice was soft. "Are you okay?" She looked over at the cubs. They had been awake for the last hour, watching her with worried eyes. They knew something was wrong. They could see her deteriorating. "I am fine," she lied. Her voice sounded slurred, drunk. "Just tired. You should sleep," Tesh said. "We can watch." The offer was so earnest, so innocent, that it made Hana want to cry. These children, offering to protect her when they were the ones who needed protection. "Thank you," she said, "but I need to stay awake. I promised your father." Mira climbed into her lap, curling up against her chest. The weight was comforting. Real. Something to focus on besides the overwhelming need to close her eyes. The monitors flickered. Hana's attention snapped back to them, her training overriding her exhaustion. Something had changed. The defensive line was buckling in the eastern sector. Swarm forces were pouring through the gap like water through a broken dam. Her sector. They were coming toward her sector. Hana's hand found the pistol. She checked the charge again, a nervous habit. Still full. She had not fired a single shot. She hoped desperately that she would not have to. The external sensors started pinging. Movement detected. Multiple contacts. Hana pulled up the perimeter feed and felt her heart stop. Swarm soldiers. At least 20 of them, moving through the settlement in a coordinated sweep pattern. They were searching buildings, checking every structure. Looking for survivors. Looking for targets. They were 3 blocks away. Maybe 5 minutes at their current pace. Hana looked at the door. It was reinforced, yes, but could it hold against a sustained assault? She did not know. She looked at the cubs. Raka had noticed the change in her expression and was watching the monitors now, his scales paling as he understood what was coming. "They are coming here?" Raka asked quietly. "Maybe," Hana said. "Maybe not. They might pass by, but she did not believe that. The swarm were thorough. They would check every structure. They would find the bunker. They would try to get in. 2 blocks away now. Hana's mind raced through her options. She could seal the inner blast door. There was a secondary chamber deeper in the bunker, designed for exactly this situation. It would protect the cubs even if the main entrance was breached. But it would trap her outside with the swarm. She could run, try to lead them away, draw their attention while the cubs hid. But they would hunt her down quickly, and then they would come back and find the cubs anyway. She could stand and fight. One exhausted diplomat with a pistol against 20 swarm soldiers. The mathematics of that scenario were not encouraging. 1 block away. Hana made her decision. She stood up, gently moving Mira aside. She walked to the supply crates and started searching through them. Medical supplies, rations, water, there. At the bottom of one crate, 2 thermal grenades, military grade, left behind by whoever had stocked this bunker. She had never used grenades before. But she had seen them used. Point and throw, right? How hard could it be? Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the first one. She carefully attached both grenades to her belt. Then she checked her pistol one more time. 20 shots. 2 grenades. Against 20 swarm soldiers. Raka was standing now, understanding what she was planning. "No," he said firmly. "You cannot fight them alone. You are not a warrior." "I know," Hana said. "But I am all you have." She looked at the 3 cubs. Raka trying so hard to be brave. Tesh, quiet and watchful. Mira too young to really understand. She wanted to say something profound, something meaningful. Instead, she just said, "Hide behind the crates. No matter what happens, stay hidden. Do you understand?" They nodded, moving reluctantly into cover. 50 meters. Hana positioned herself at the entrance. The door was still sealed, but she could see them on the external feed now. dark shapes moving through the pre-dawn light, their chitinous armor reflecting the emergency lights. 25 meters. Her finger rested on the trigger. Her heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to do anything except stand here and wait for death to arrive. But she had made a promise. Humans kept their promises. 10 meters. The swarm soldiers stopped directly outside. She could hear them now, not just see them on monitors. Their clicking communication sharp and alien, the scraping of claws on metal. They had found the bunker. 5 meters. One of them approached the door. Hana aimed at the entrance, trying to steady her hands. This was it. No more time. No more options. Just her and the door and whatever came through it. The door began to glow. They were cutting through it. Hana pulled one of the thermal grenades from her belt. The arming mechanism was simple. Twist, prime, throw. She twisted. The grenade hummed to life in her hand, warm and deadly. The door glowed brighter. Molten metal dripped onto the floor. The swarm were almost through. Behind her, Mira made a frightened clicking sound. Hana did not turn around. She could not. If she looked at those cubs, she would lose her nerve. The door exploded inward. Everything happened in a blur. Swarm soldiers poured through the entrance. Hana primed the grenade and threw it. It sailed through the air, almost in slow motion, and landed in the middle of the lead group. The explosion was deafening. Heat washed over her. The first 3 swarm soldiers disintegrated. The ones behind them stumbled, disoriented by the blast. Hana raised her pistol and fired. She did not aim, not really. She just pointed at center mass and pulled the trigger again and again. The recoil jolted her tired arms. Some shots went wide. Some found targets. Swarm soldiers fell or staggered back. More were coming through the door. Too many, way too many. Hana pulled the second grenade. But her hands were shaking so badly that she fumbled it. The grenade hit the floor and rolled. She dove after it, scooped it up, primed it. A swarm soldier lunged at her. She threw the grenade at it point blank. The explosion lifted her off her feet and slammed her into the wall. Pain exploded through her body. Her ears rang. She could not hear, could not see clearly. Everything was smoke and fire and chaos. But she was still holding the pistol. Muscle memory made her aim at the doorway. More swarm were coming. Or maybe it was the same ones. She could not tell. She fired until the pistol ran dry, the charge depleted. Then she just stood there, swaying, the empty weapon still in her hands. The doorway was blocked with bodies. Some were moving. Some were not. Smoke billowed through the bunker. The emergency systems kicked in, venting the air, but it was slow. Too slow. Hana tried to take a step forward and fell to her knees. Her body was done. Completely done. The adrenaline was gone. The stimulant was gone. Every reserve of energy she possessed had been burned away. She tried to stand again and could not. Her legs would not work. Her arms would not work. She was dimly aware that she was injured. Burns, maybe. Shrapnel. She could not feel the specific pain, just a general agony that encompassed everything. The ringing in her ears faded slightly. She could hear clicking. Swarm clicking. They were still coming. They were not all dead. Some had survived her desperate attack and they were regrouping. She had failed. After everything, she had failed. Hana looked back toward where the cubs were hiding. She could not see them through the smoke. She hoped they stayed hidden. She hoped someone would find them. She hoped Koth would forgive her. Her vision was darkening at the edges. The bunker was spinning. Or maybe she was falling. She could not tell anymore. The last thing she saw was the doorway. Swarm soldiers stepping over the bodies of their fallen. Coming for her. Coming for the cubs. She tried to raise the empty pistol one more time. A useless gesture. A final defiance. Then everything went black. Hana slumped against the wall, the pistol falling from her nerveless fingers. She sat there, head tilted back, eyes closed. To anyone looking at her, she appeared to be sleeping. Just an exhausted woman taking a rest. Behind her, 3 cubs huddled in absolute silence, too terrified to even click. They watched the swarm soldiers enter the bunker. They watched their protector fail to move. They prepared for the end. Then from somewhere outside they heard new sounds. Plasma fire, explosions, human voices shouting orders. The heavy thump of boots on metal. The swarm soldiers in the doorway suddenly jerked and fell. Holes burned through their carapaces. More plasma fire lit up the smoke. The remaining swarm scattered or died. A human soldier appeared in the doorway, weapon raised. Then another. And another. They swept the bunker with practiced efficiency. confirming no more swarm remained. One of them saw Hana, then saw the cubs, then saw the bodies piled in the entrance and the scorch marks on the walls. "Contact Commander Park," the soldier said into his comm. "You need to see this. Right now." Outside, the sun had fully risen. The battle was over. Coalition reinforcements had arrived. The swarm were in full retreat, and in the bunker, surrounded by the evidence of her desperate last stand, Lee Hana slept through it all. Commander Park Junho had seen a lot of things during his 15 years in the Coalition military. He had fought on 12 different worlds against 6 different hostile species. He had led extraction missions, assault operations, and desperate last stands. He thought he had seen every kind of courage there was. He was wrong. The call had come through while his team was sweeping the eastern sector for survivors. Sergeant Choi Daeun had picked up life signs in an old supply bunker that was supposed to be empty. More than that, it was in the middle of what had been the heaviest fighting. The swarm had pushed through that area in their final assault. The bunker should have been overrun, but the life signs were there. Multiple contacts, so Junho had diverted his team to investigate. Now he stood in the bunker doorway and tried to process what he was seeing. Bodies, swarm soldiers, at least 8 of them, piled in the entrance and scattered across the floor, scorch marks on the walls from thermal grenades, spent plasma cartridges on the ground. The air still smelled of burned chitin and melted metal, and in the middle of it all, slumped against the wall, was a young woman in a diplomatic corps uniform. Her head tilted back, eyes closed, face covered in soot and small cuts. An empty plasma pistol lay on the floor beside her. She was not moving. Behind her, peeking out from behind supply crates, were 3 small Valthoran cubs. "Sir," Daeun stood beside him, her weapon still raised. She had seen the same thing he had. "What happened here?" Hunyo stepped carefully into the bunker, avoiding the bodies. He knelt beside the woman and checked her pulse. Strong. Steady. She was breathing normally. She was not injured badly. She was just asleep. He looked at the carnage around him and then back at her peaceful expression. Asleep. After this, after fighting off multiple swarm soldiers with just a pistol and 2 grenades, after protecting 3 alien cubs from certain death, she was just asleep. "Hyejin," Junho said into his comm. "Get in here. We need medical." Corporal Kim Hyejin appeared a moment later, medkit already in hand. She saw the woman and immediately ran a scanner over her. Severe exhaustion. Adrenaline toxicity. She used military-grade stimulants. Hyejin paused, checking the readings again. "Commander, how long has she been awake?" "I do not know. Check her ID." Hyejin pulled the ID chip from the woman's uniform. "Lee Hana, Diplomatic Corps, xenobiologist. She has been on planet for 3 weeks. Assignment notes say she has been working double shifts as translator and medical liaison." She looked at Junho. "Sir, her last logged sleep cycle was 48 hours ago." Junho did the math. If she had been awake 48 hours before the attack started, and the attack had lasted 7 hours, then she had been awake for over 50 hours total. Maybe more. He looked at the cubs. The oldest one, maybe 7 years old, was watching him with wary amber eyes. Junho spoke in Valthoran, his accent rough but understandable. "Are you hurt?" The cub shook his head. "She protected us." "The human protected us. What is your name?" "Raka. These are my siblings, Tesh and Mira. Our father is clan leader Koth." Junho felt his eyebrows rise. "Koth's cubs. That explained a lot, and nothing. Tell me what happened." Raka clicked softly to his siblings, then looked back at Junho. "Father gave us to her when the fighting started. She brought us here. She stayed awake all night. She did not sleep. When the bad things came, she fought them. She threw the fire grenades and shot them. Then she fell down. We thought she was dead." The youngest cub, Mira, made a distressed clicking sound. "Is she dead?" "No," Hyejin said gently. "She's just very, very tired. She needs to rest." Junho stood and examined the entrance more carefully. The door had been cut open from outside. Swarm breaching technique. Then the grenade scorch marks positioned perfectly to catch anyone coming through the doorway. The plasma scoring on the walls and bodies showed a pattern. Panicked fire maybe, but effective. Several swarm soldiers had been hit multiple times. He walked to where Hana sat and looked at her position. She had been facing the door, defending it. Even after throwing both grenades, even after exhausting her pistol, she had stayed in position between the cubs and the entrance. Daeun appeared beside him. Sir, I am reading swarm blood traces in the corridor outside. More bodies. They cleared them already, but there were at least 3 more soldiers out there. How many does that make total? 11 confirmed kills. Maybe 12. Junho looked at the sleeping diplomat. 11 swarm soldiers. She had killed 11 swarm soldiers while running on empty, protecting 3 cubs that were not even her own species. And then she had just passed out, exhausted beyond measure, trusting that somehow it would be enough. Get Ambassador Yoon on the line, Junho said quietly. She needs to know about this. Ambassador Yoon Sora arrived 10 minutes later, running despite her age and position. She burst into the bunker, saw Hana, and let out a choked sound. She knelt beside the younger woman and gently touched her face. Is she hurt? Sora asked. Minor injuries, Hijin reported. Burns, cuts, bruising. Nothing serious. The main issue is exhaustion. She pushed herself past every safe limit. I am surprised she is still breathing. Sora looked around the bunker, seeing the same thing Junho had seen. The bodies. The evidence of desperate fighting. The cubs safe and unharmed. When she looked back at Junho, there were tears on her face. This girl volunteered for this assignment, Sora said softly. Everyone else was afraid of the Valthorans. They saw monsters. But Hana saw people. She worked 18-hour days trying to build bridges. She barely slept. I kept telling her to rest, but she said there was too much work to do. Why did she volunteer? Hunyo asked. Her brother. She lost him to the swarm when she was 17. I think she has been trying to save him ever since. Every person she helps, every life she protects, she is trying to make up for not being able to save him. Junho looked at Hana again. She looked young, too young to be carrying that kind of weight. But then most heroes looked too young for the burdens they carried. We need to move her to medical, Hijin said. She needs proper rest and monitoring. The cubs too? They should be checked. Wait. Junho held up a hand. He walked over to the cubs. Raka, did your father say anything before he left you with her? Anything about what this meant? Raka nodded. He said we do not give cubs to outsiders, ever. He said he trusted her. He said she would understand the honor. Junho understood. In Valthoran culture, cubs were everything. They represented the future of the clan. To trust an outsider with them was unthinkable. It was the highest honor that could be given. Koth had trusted this human woman with his children's lives. And she had proven worthy of that trust. Is father alive? Raka asked quietly. I do not know, Junho admitted. But we will find out. A commotion outside made everyone turn. A massive shape filled the doorway, too big to enter easily. Koth. His armor was scorched and damaged, his scales marked with a dozen injuries. But he was alive. His amber eyes swept the bunker, seeing everything. The bodies. His cubs safe. Hana unconscious against the wall. He made a sound deep in his throat, something between a growl and a keen. Father. Raka ran to him, his siblings close behind. Koth knelt and gathered them in his massive arms, clicking softly in their language. Then he looked at Junho. The human? She is alive. Exhausted but alive. She fought off the swarm. Killed at least 11 of them. Junho paused. She kept her promise. Koth stood slowly. He approached Hana's unconscious form and knelt beside her. For a moment he just looked at her. Then with surprising gentleness he touched her shoulder with one clawed hand. In my culture, Koth said, speaking in human standards so everyone could understand, there is no greater honor than protecting another's cubs. She is not Valthoran. She is small and soft and has no claws. But she stood against the swarm for my children. She did not run. She did not hide. She stayed awake when her body demanded sleep. She fought when she could barely stand. He looked at Junho. Humans are strange, but humans are brave. Sora spoke up. Clan leader Koth, I apologize. I should never have allowed this situation to happen. Hana should not have been put in this position. No, Koth said firmly. There is no apology needed. I chose to give my cubs to her. I knew what I asked. She accepted, knowing the danger. She gave everything she had. There is only honor here. He looked back at Hana. When she wakes, there will be a ceremony. She will be bonded to my clan. She will be aunt to my cubs. This is our way. Junho watched as Hyejin carefully prepared Hana for transport. The young woman did not stir, lost in the deep sleep of complete exhaustion. She had no idea that the entire settlement was talking about her. She had no idea that the Valthorans were calling her the Little Guardian. She had no idea that she had just changed the course of human-Valthoran relations forever. She had just done her job, made a promise, kept it. As they loaded Hana onto the stretcher, Junho thought about his own 15 years of service. He had medals, commendations. He was considered one of the Coalition's finest commanders. But he had never done anything as quietly heroic as falling asleep at his post, because he had given everything he had to protect those in his care. "Sir?" Dayun asked. "Orders?" Yunyo looked around the bunker one more time. At the bodies, the scorch marks, the evidence of one human woman's determination to keep a promise. "Seal this bunker," he said. "Nothing gets moved. Nothing gets cleaned. This is a historical site now. People need to see what happened here. They need to understand." "Understand what, sir?" Yunyo watched as they carried Hana out into the morning light. 3 worried cubs following the stretcher. "That humans," he said softly, "will go to any length to protect those they have sworn to guard, even if it kills them, even if they have to stay awake through the longest night, even if they have to face down an army with nothing but an empty pistol and sheer stubborn will." He paused. "People need to understand that when a human makes a promise, they keep it, no matter the cost." Outside, the sun shone on a battlefield slowly falling quiet. The swarm had been driven back. The settlement had survived. And in medical, Hana slept peacefully for the first time in 3 days, unaware that she had become a legend. Hana woke up 3 days later to the sound of soft clicking. For a moment she panicked. The swarm, the cubs, the bunker. She tried to sit up, reaching for a pistol that was not there. Gentle hands pushed her back down. "Easy," a calm voice said. "You are safe, you are in medical." Hana blinked, her vision slowly focusing. Corporal Kim Hyejin stood beside her bed, checking monitors. The clicking sound came from the corner of the room, where 3 small Valthoran forms huddled together, watching her with worried eyes. "The cubs," Hana said, her voice rough. "Are they okay?" "They are fine. Completely unharmed. Thanks to you." Hyejin smiled. "They have been here every day, waiting for you to wake up. We could not make them leave." The memories came flooding back. The bunker. The endless night. The swarm breaking through, fighting with grenades and a pistol. Then nothing. Darkness. "I failed," Hana whispered. "They got through. I could not stop them." Hyejin's expression turned gentle. "Hana, you did not fail. You killed 11 swarm soldiers. 11. With just a pistol and 2 grenades. You held them off until Commander Park's team arrived. The cubs are alive because of you." Hana stared at her. 11? That could not be right. She barely remembered throwing the grenades. The rest was just chaos and fear. How is that possible? "I am not a soldier. I barely know how to use a weapon." "Fear and determination can make people capable of extraordinary things," Hyejin said. "You made a promise. Your body somehow found the strength to keep it, even when it should have been impossible." The cubs made their way over to the bed, moving slowly as if afraid they might scare her. Mira reached out one small claw and gently touched Hana's hand. "You did not die," Mira said softly in human standard. Hana had taught her those words during their cultural sessions. "No," Hana said, tears suddenly blurring her vision. "I did not die, and neither did you. That is all that matters." The door to the medical bay opened. Koth entered, having to duck to fit through the doorway. His armor was gone, replaced by traditional Valthoran clan robes. He looked at Hana, and she saw something in his amber eyes that she could not quite name. "My cubs," he said gently. "Give us a moment." Raka, Tesh, and Mira reluctantly moved back. Koth approached the bed and knelt beside it, bringing his massive head level with Hana's. "You kept your promise," he said simply. "I tried," Hana replied. "I am sorry I was not stronger. I am sorry I fell asleep. If Commander Park had not arrived when he did." "Stop." Koth's voice was firm but not unkind. "You did not fail. You gave everything you had. You stayed awake for over 50 hours. You fought when most beings would have fled. You placed yourself between my cubs and death." He paused. "In my culture, we have a saying. The strength of the warrior is not measured by the weapons they carry, but by the length they will go to protect those under their care. You, Lihana, are a warrior, whether you believe it or not." "I am just a xenobiologist," Hana said weakly. "You are more than that, and now, if you accept, you will be family." Koth gestured to his cubs. "I wish to perform the blood bonding ceremony. You will become aunt to my cubs, part of my clan. This is not a small thing. This is forever." Hana looked at the three young Velthorans watching her with hopeful eyes. She thought about the long night in the bunker, the fear, the exhaustion, the moment when she thought they would all die. She also thought about her brother, about how she had failed to protect him, about how she had carried that guilt for 11 years. Maybe she could not save him, but she had saved these three. "I accept," she said. "I would be honored." The ceremony was simple but profound. Koth used a traditional clan blade to make a small cut on his palm, then did the same to Hana's hand with her permission. They pressed their palms together, mixing their blood. Then each cub did the same, one after another. When it was finished, Koth spoke in formal Valthoran, then translated for Hana. "You are now Hana of Clan Koth. My children are your children. My honor is your honor. My enemies are your enemies. My protection is yours, and yours is mine. This bond does not break. Not in life. Not in death." Tears ran down Hana's face. She did not trust herself to speak. She just nodded. The cubs piled onto her bed, careful of her injuries, and clicked softly. Hyojin stood in the corner, quietly documenting everything for the official records. This was the first time in known history that a Valthoran clan had bonded with a human. Over the next few days, as Hana recovered, the story spread. It started with Commander Park Junho's official report, which was required to be filed with Coalition Command. He had written it plainly, without embellishment. Just the facts. 1 diplomatic corps member, 3 Valthoran cubs, 50-plus hours awake, 11 swarm soldiers killed, cubs recovered safely. But facts had a way of becoming legends. The report made its way through military channels. Soldiers talked. The Valthorans talked. Ambassador Yun Sora talked. Soon, every human on Valthor Prime knew about the diplomat who had stayed awake all night, guarding the clan leader's cubs. Then the story reached the Valthoran matriarch, Elder Nashira. Nashira was old, even by Valthoran standards. She had lived through 4 wars and seen 3 generations of her clan grow up. She was not easily impressed. But when she heard about what had happened in that bunker, she asked to meet Hana. The meeting took place in the settlement's main hall, once Hana was well enough to leave medical. Nashira sat on a raised platform surrounded by clan elders. Hana stood before them, feeling very small and very human. Nashira studied her for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying easily through the hall. "Human Hana, I have heard what you did. I did not believe it at first. I thought the reports were exaggerated. Humans are small, weak. They tire easily. They have no natural weapons. They are not warriors." She paused. "I was wrong." A murmur went through the assembled Valthorans. "We Valthorans pride ourselves on our strength, our claws, our scales, our ability to fight and survive. We thought these things made us superior to humans." Nashira leaned forward. "But you showed us something we did not understand. Humans do not need claws to be dangerous. They do not need scales to be strong. What humans have is something more valuable. Humans have will, determination, the ability to keep going when their bodies say to stop, the ability to fight when logic says to run, the ability to protect others even at the cost of themselves." She stood, her massive form towering over everyone. "You, Hana of Clan Koth, stayed awake for over 50 hours to protect 3 cubs that were not your own. You fought 11 swarm soldiers with a weapon you barely knew how to use. You did not run. You did not hide. You stood your ground because you made a promise. This is true strength. This is true honor. Nashira descended from the platform and approached Hana. She placed one large hand on Hana's shoulder. The Valthoran clans have been hesitant to fully ally with the coalition. We were not sure humans were strong enough to stand beside us in battle. You have shown us we were wrong. Not because you won, but because you refused to give up, even when defeat was certain. She turned to address the assembled crowd. I call for a vote. The Valthoran clans will enter full military alliance with the coalition. We will fight beside humans. We will learn from humans. And we will teach humans what we know. Together we will be stronger than either species alone. The vote was unanimous. Later, Hana sat with Commander Junho in one of the settlement's quiet gardens. Her wounds had healed mostly, though she still tired easily. The doctor said it would take weeks for her to fully recover from the exhaustion and stress she had put her body through. You know what you did, right? Junho asked. You changed everything. The Valthorans are signing a full alliance. Their warriors are volunteering to join coalition units, all because you kept 3 cubs safe. I did what anyone would have done, Hana said. No. Junho's voice was firm. You did what a human would have done, and that is different. He looked at her seriously. The coalition diplomatic security wants you. They are creating a new program. Diplomats with combat training. Crisis response. You would be perfect for it. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Part of her wanted to refuse. She was not a soldier. She did not want to be a soldier. But another part of her, the part that had stood in that bunker doorway with an empty pistol, knew that Junho was right. She could do more. She could help more. She could save more. I will do it, she said finally, but on one condition. I stay as a xenobiologist and cultural liaison. The combat training is secondary. I am not joining to fight. I am joining to protect. Agreed, Junho said, smiling. We need more people like you. People who see aliens as people first and potential threats second. 5 years passed. Hana finished her training and became one of the coalition's most requested cultural liaisons. She specialized in first contact situations and crisis negotiations. She never fired a weapon in combat again, though she trained regularly and maintained her certifications. But she was there in the background at a dozen critical moments in coalition history. Koth's cubs grew up. Raka joined the coalition peacekeeping forces and became a decorated officer. Tesh became a diplomat herself, inspired by her Aunt Hana. Mira, the youngest, became a teacher, educating young Valthorans about other species and the importance of cross-cultural understanding. The bunker where Hana had made her stand was preserved as a memorial. Tourists could visit it, see the scorch marks on the walls, read the plaques describing what had happened. The display included her empty pistol, the spent grenade casings, and a holographic recording of Commander Junho's report. On the 5th anniversary of the battle, Hana returned to Valthor Prime for the dedication of a new monument. It stood in the center of the settlement, visible from everywhere, a statue of a human figure, smaller than the Valthorans around her, sitting with her back against a wall. 3 small Valthoran forms huddled behind her. Her posture was protective, vigilant, exhausted. The inscription was in both human standard and Valthoran. Hana read it as she stood before the statue, flanked by Koth and his now-grown cubs. She stayed awake so they could sleep. She stood guard so they could live. This is the measure of courage. Do you think it is accurate? Koth asked quietly. Hana looked at the statue. At her own face, rendered in stone, wearing an expression of grim determination. She barely recognized herself. I do not know, she admitted. I was so scared that night. I thought I was going to die. I thought we were all going to die. But you did not run, Raka said. He was tall now, towering over her like his father. You were afraid, but you stayed. That is what courage is. Junho appeared beside them, now a full general, his uniform heavy with medals and commendations. You still do not see yourself as a hero, do you? I just did my job, Hana said. I made a promise. I kept it. That is what makes you a hero, Junho replied. You do not do extraordinary things for glory or recognition. You do them because you think they are just what anyone would do. But they are not. They are what humans do, and that is what makes your species so remarkable. He gestured to the monument. This statue is not just about you. It is about what humanity represents. Determination, compassion, the refusal to abandon those who need protection. You showed an entire species what humans are capable of when we give everything we have. Hana looked around at the crowd gathered for the dedication. Humans and Valthorans standing together, dozens of other species represented as well. Children playing together without regard for which species they belonged to. This was what she had fought for. Not glory, not recognition, just this. People living together, understanding each other, protecting each other. Mira tugged on her sleeve. Aunt Hana, will you tell us the story again? About that night? Hana looked down at the young Valthoran who had once been small enough to curl up in her lap. You were there. You remember? I remember being scared. I remember you singing to us. But I do not remember the fighting. Tell us what happened. So Hana told them. She told them about the fear and the exhaustion, about staying awake through sheer stubbornness, about throwing grenades with shaking hands and firing a pistol she barely knew how to use, about falling asleep against the wall, convinced she had failed. She told them the truth, that she was not a warrior, that she was just a person who had made a promise and refused to break it, even when keeping it seemed impossible. And as she told the story, with humans and Valthorans gathered around to listen, Hana finally understood what they all saw in her. Not a hero, not a warrior, just a human who had stayed awake when everything in her body screamed to sleep, who had fought when logic said to run, who had given everything she had to protect 3 children who were not even her own species. That was what it meant to be human. To care beyond reason, to fight beyond strength, to protect beyond capability. She stayed awake so they could sleep. She stood guard so they could live. And in doing so, she showed the galaxy what humanity truly was.